Do you recall when was the moment that in along your lifeline from you being a baby to you being 23 years old, where you became numb? Like,
No, I think I know because this is really a key point actually that I wanted to bring up about safety. I believe
okay,
safety, in order to really know oneself, in order to really be oneself, like you seem pretty comfortable with yourself. In order to be really comfortable, if you look at people and some people like look stiff or they look like they're playing a role or they're always acting, and then if you look at someone else who's totally comfortable and you feel, how do you know that? Because you feel comfortable, you feel their presence, you could call it mirror neurons, whatever, but just like if you were in the presence of a dog that you loved or a baby, you automatically become, vulnerable. That's because they give you that sense of probably safety that you feel right in their presence. And I didn't know it, but growing up, I didn't feel safe, right? So in my earliest experiences of life, unfortunately, I didn't have that experience, right? That some people may take for granted. So I had to earn it actually. And through these different, therapies and somatic therapies, Feldenkrais and biodynamic cranial, and then later on polyvagal theory, which is Dr. Porges's work, where he talked about, like seeing the world through this lens of, safety or threat. How do we, see the world? Oh yeah, so like Irene Lyon, she's a person, practices. She's combined Feldenkrais with SE, somatic experiencing. She used to work closely with Peter Levine. So she kind of developed her own model. She's on YouTube a lot. And what she discovered, and I totally agree with, she said, well, why aren't some people getting better on my table? Because she'd be doing Feldenkrais with this population. And she noticed that a good percentage, 20% or whatever, weren't responding. And then she realized that the reason they weren't responding was they had early trauma that really they were in a state of freeze or fight or flight. They really, in order to learn, right, in order to truly learn to sense yourself, to really be able to, everybody says, well, feel yourself. I used to listen to these recordings of Moshe like nonstop for my first 10, 15 years after my training. Man, Feldenkrais would be exhorting you, feel this, you'd be feel this. But the truth was I was just parroting. I wasn't really feeling myself. Even this is 15 years after the training ended. Why? Because I still had this early trauma, these imprints that I hadn't really digested. Trauma is really an overwhelming experience that you haven't fully digested. It doesn't have to be something like, horrific like rape. It could be any experience that you can't assimilate and digest, right? And so, it could be verbal abuse, it could be whatever. So, whatever is in your body that you haven't fully digested is kind of condensed, as like they call it, like in cranial sacral energy cysts. These are places that just basically haven't integrated into your body physiologically. So I had to really discover those and really get beneath that. And when I did, all of a sudden I listened to Moshe's lessons and I would get the lesson in 5 minutes. The whole thread of the lesson I would get. Because why? Because I was totally in my sensory body. Whereas if you are in this other place that I mentioned, you're not in your sensory body. You may think you are. You may act like, oh yeah, I'm a Feldenkrais practitioner. I'm a Alexander. No, it doesn't matter what type, do you see what I mean? It's
yeah,
really making,
yes.